Hello and welcome to Future Forward. This week, we're going to dive deep into a person and a series of businesses that I've never knit together into one whole story. So who is Elon Musk, really?
It's really hard to tell. Is he a showman or a scientist? We'll see at the end.
Individually, his ideas seem kind of kooky, but then, bam!
So today we're going to look at the whole thing. SpaceX, Tesla, Hyperloop, and this brand new thing, Neuralink.
So inside the mind of Elon, today on Future Forward.
I'm Alexis Scordato.
And I am Stephen Rosenbaum. Let us launch. By the way, I got a Neuralink right here. I brought it with me. I'm going to install it in my head right now.
Great. I see you shaved your head just for the occasion.
I did. I'm shined and improved. So we're going to do all the companies, and this began because, as I do every week as I'm preparing the show, one of the things I read a lot of things, but one of the things I always look at is our friends at IEEE Spectrum's fabulous website, and there was an article about Elon Musk, and so I said, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. I should take a look at that." And that article led me down quite a rabbit hole, I have to say.
I'm actually surprised we haven't done him in this much depth before.
Well, because there isn't, he doesn't, unlike Apple, which preaches the gospel of Apple in this big kind of overwhelming way, each one of Elon's individual companies are kind of their own story.
Right.
And this is a perfect week to do this because he's got a lot of big news. But let's start with the Neuralink announcement. Had you heard of this thing?
No, not until the last 48 hours.
Not a word, right? Not a peep.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in front of my computer, maybe it was Thursday or Friday of last week, and I get a blip saying there's going to be a live broadcast. Elon Musk's going to announce Neuralink. And so I go over to it, and it sits there, and then there's nothing, and then there's nothing for 20 minutes, and then there's nothing for half an hour. And then finally, people are starting to complain in the comments, and I'm like, maybe this is a joke. I mean, I'd never heard of it. Maybe it's not a thing. So I abandoned it. And then this Spectrum article came out, and it is exciting as hell, unbelievably important, and kind of terrifying.
Right. So basically taking a device or a chip that is the equivalent of 5 quarters stacked, lodging it in your brain so that it can sync with an AI.
So the actual video here, let me bring it up. This is the actual video of the presentation that he gave. And we'll put it in the show notes because it's definitely worth watching. This is everything got ads now. Sorry. Notice how it used to be 3 seconds and now it's 5. All right. So he's very careful. Clearly his handlers have said to him, "Don't make this sci-fi scary. Don't do it." And so he talks
make it about the medicine, make it about the cognitive disorders and the potential.
Right, to heal people who've gotten into accidents, who've got, which is fine. And I inductively charged, which means that you end up with holding a charger to your head or wearing a charging cap. By the way, all the gizmo makers in the world are busy designing their Neuralink charging cap devices to release. But it is he presents it as basically a machine man interface, wireless interface. And if you don't pay close attention, it seems kind of fabuloso, right? I mean,
right. But it works. They tested it on pigs.
Although I'd love to see how pigs, anyway, here's the video. This is a video of, and they're actually getting the the data. And by the way, sidebar, but if you watch the live event, everyone's wearing masks. The cameraman is wearing masks, but there's definitely not social distancing with the quote audience, whoever's in the room, and they're not wearing masks. So this would seem to be so. A couple of things about this and why I think this is the way to start a show about Elon. Like, this is wild. And he says at the very beginning, we're not raising money. We're not trying to sell the device. This isn't a marketing video. We're looking for talent. We're looking for engineering talent. We want the best of the brightest. So he's looking to put together, people that will build innovation around connecting machines and, in this case, pigs. But presumably, pig brains are not that different than human brains.
Yeah. So I predict that in our lifetime, this will be available for humans, and maybe the entry point to the market is going to be weight loss. It's going to be something like, this is going to help you suppress your appetite, or it's going to help you better understand chronic pain. You can totally see.
So often on this show, I like to think of myself as the risk taker, but in this particular case, I think you're just out of your mind.
So it's definitely not for me, but I can definitely see some people being very into it, because you think about just general trends, right? We're connected to our devices. We have connected homes. The future is going that way. So the idea of even having it more pervasive and abstracted out, like, forget wearable devices. It's almost like you are the device. I can see it.
So two things. One, I drew the line in my household. I have lots of connected devices. I did not buy a connected refrigerator, and I did not buy a connected washer or dryer, because I think big consumer appliances where you have to have a guy come in to fix it if it breaks, because you can't really take it to the store. To me, that's where I draw the line. But I also think the idea of elective brain surgery is like when I put those two words together, I'm just like, we haven't ever talked about this, but like, I won't do LASIK.
Mm-hmm.
I like my glasses. They're part of my personality, but I also don't like the idea of like someone who I don't know, who I'm never going to see again, putting a laser in my eyes.
So I totally think though people are going to do it. Like, for example, like when you have a deviated septum, sometimes people go in and they not only get their deviated septum fixed, but they get a nose job, right? So for all we know, someone's like, oh, I'm getting hair transplants. And while you're at it, just like stick the Neuralink in there. 2 for 1.
We're going to go back to the Elon conversation. All right. So let's, everyone, if you're paying attention, so this is one of 5 companies we're going to talk about. This is the first one. This is Neuralink. It came out of the blue. Maybe other geeks out there, if you're watching this and you want to jump into the comments, we'll add your voice to the program. I don't know that this is going to be a thing, but and I don't know that he has any medical background. But in any case, let's move on to thing number 2, which is maybe the one everyone knows, the most high profile. Well, the earliest adventure in Elon land was the Tesla.
Yeah.
And I remember first when he came out and started talking about it, I mean, everybody went nuts and said, you're out of your mind. There's not going to be, he's not the automotive industry laughed at him. I mean, he went, he got humiliated. And now it turns out, I mean, does anyone think the Tesla isn't awesome?
No, I mean, it's actually really impressive. I mean, the go-to-market strategy was amazing. He only needed to find a few hundred sort of early adopter techies, sort of who could afford a car that was not readily available. And here we are years later, and electric cars are kind of sexy.
Yeah, and it's also a beautiful car. So there's a terrific article about, and it says, if you want to buy a car post coronavirus, you should consider the Tesla, pros and cons. And it's really well written. This is Business Insider. And essentially what it says is Lots of reason to buy it, priced reasonably. The only negative they come up with is the writer says, if you have small children, the hour it takes to sit at the charging station as opposed to the 5 minutes it takes to fill up a tank of gas might make you insane.
Yeah, so my understanding is it's like a 100-mile sort of driving radius, and then you have to charge up. And but what solves this, though, and I think this is what people are doing, is they're just buying multiple batteries.
I don't think
But either way, it's not really a road trip car yet.
I don't think you can switch the batteries out. I think they're enormous.
Or maybe that's the solution, the long-term one.
Yeah, the long-term one is something with you roll in and they stick the new battery under your car. By the way, just to jump back for 1 second, we got a comment from Evita who says that she is concerned about
the Neuralink.
And Evita, I totally agree with you.
We're concerned about a lot of tech on this podcast.
Yeah, fair enough. That's true.
But that train just keeps going. So,
but part of what makes this is the overall who is Elon question. I mean, will history write that he was Einstein? I mean, is he or is he Frankenstein? Like, pick a Stein. Is he a mad scientist or a visionary, or both?
I mean, I think you need to be mad in order to be, brilliant. And, I don't think there's any doubt that he's sort of like the real life Tony Stark of our time.
That's interesting. I think what it comes down to is just if we're keeping a scorecard, Tesla, count me in. I'll buy one. I don't know where I put it, but sure. Neuralink, yeah, I think I'm a pass. As it is, I restart between all the electronic devices in my life, my phone, my Wi-Fi router, my smart hub, my blah, 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 blah. I'm restarting or upgrading software all the time. And something like, I mean, what happens, just going back to Neuralink for a second, what happens if you install it and then he goes out of business, like Solar City? He says, all right, couldn't make it work. Now you've got this thing in your head and they send you an email saying, bad news, software version 3.0 will be our last.
Right.
Swing by the neighborhood brain surgery store to have it removed.
Yeah.
I think I'm enjoying this a little too much. All right. All right. So let's move to the one that gets the most press, and that is SpaceX.
Yep.
So SpaceX raised $1.9 billion in its latest round of funding. This is all last. By the way, last week was a big week for Elon. He raised $1.9 billion for SpaceX. He was named one of the 4 richest men on Earth, people on Earth.
He's worth $100 billion.
He's worth $100 billion,
which is half of Jeff Bezos, but still not bad.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to ship, dog food and diapers. He just does the sexy stuff. And on top of that, he announced Neuralink. So these are all, kind of 3 great big things. But also, and this is maybe the thing I don't understand as well, and maybe you do, I don't exactly understand the business model of SpaceX. Like, I mean, this is how is it that the US government decided to be out of the space business, and here comes Elon Musk and he says, I'm going to be in the space business, and presumably the federal government pays him $1 kabillion, right?
Right.
$1 kabillion. So I just don't understand how he knew to build a space company and how people knew to invest in it, given the fact that, who is the customer? If you were looking at the deck, if you were thinking, you know what, I got $1 million, I got $100 million, I want to invest in SpaceX. Let me see the business plan. Okay, well, the U.S. government is our customer, and then a couple of satellite dish companies that need to put things up in space, and then luxury travel, space travel customer. Like, it seems like that whole customer list is pretty short for him.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what happens when you actually create a new market, right? Before cars and people are driving around on horses or getting around on horses, no one's saying like, what is this like automobile business plan?
Yeah, but there weren't PowerPoint decks back then either.
Yeah, I know. So I think it's just the idea. It's like you couldn't have predicted, in the 70s necessarily, unless you were just a true believer in the Jetsons, that, we would, be living in this world of automated cars and, wireless technology and, computers in our pockets.
But SpaceX has also gotten some bad press, right? Some employee drama.
Yeah, I mean, with coronavirus, I mean, as you can say, Elon's brilliant, but at the same time, he's also ruthless, relentless. He, every single one of his companies, you can't really work on Zoom, right? It's hardware, it's neuroscience. So he's been asking a lot of his workers to go in, even against state orders.
All right, we're going to jump back to Neuralink just for a second because Bill Benson is a long comment, which I think is worth just adding to the mix. He says he's been following Neuralink for a while, and more generally, I've been following this kind of technology. It's interesting, and it's a complex story that's got its roots back in the 1950s, really. Okay. John Horgan knows the early background very well, the sci-fi aspect of it, which Musk avoided in this demo. Yes, he absolutely did.
Smart, yeah.
Although he was asked by someone in the audience if he thought Neuralink would connect to gaming. And he said, without skipping a beat, absolutely, which I think must have terrified the press handlers in the room. Anyway, these comments are this is good to know. And he's saying that Musk talked about Neuralink with Joe Rogan, which is not a podcast that I generally listen to, but maybe I should. And Bill finally says, Musk is a brilliant engineer, but has no experience in the nervous system. However, Christoph Koch is an expert and ... So I don't know who that is. But adding it to names we're going to talk about. All right, so SpaceX, and so let's just finish on SpaceX. I find SpaceX inherently unbelievably sexy.
I would say it's romantic. I mean, I don't know if you watched the last Falcon 9 rocket that brought the 2 American astronauts to the International Space Station, but it actually brought me to tears. I mean, it's incredible that, he set out to have this vision of taking people into space, and he did it. It's not NASA. It's a private sector. Like
when the 2 rockets landed side by side, they went up and then they landed in perfect synchron. I just thought that was gorgeous. Thought it was all right, so don't exactly understand the business of SpaceX, but we like the rockets. And Mars, I just think that they have to say to people, you understand when you get on the Mars trip, there's no return flight. Like it's a one-way ticket to Mars. Like we're not. That being said, Mars looks more appealing every day as the Earth gets hotter and hotter. So, I mean, I assume that's if you're one of the 4 richest people on Earth, that's what you're thinking about, which is, if the Earth is uninhabitable, where do I take all my money and where can I go with it? So,
right. Bill chimed in again, and he said that when the space shuttle program was discontinued, NASA went for another source of heavy lifting capabilities, and Jeff Bezos, our other multi-billionaire who we just mentioned, his Blue Origins is in the same business and category as, I guess, space, and so they're actually competitors. But I think it's questionable when maybe space tourism is going to be real. I mean, I definitely know people who are like, put me on the list before I die. If I can go into space, like I'm in. I just don't know how big that market is. But at the same time, if space is a frontier and if the Earth is dying and we want longevity and we want the human race to continue, then yeah, I guess Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are our best hope.
Well, all I'll say is I did fly in the zero gravity plane.
So you're on the list. You're on the SpaceX
list. And I have to say, on my list of 5 best things in my life, it's in my top 5. Maybe even in my top 3.
Wow. All right, post-coronavirus, I'm adding it to my
And
bucket list.
and by the way, you know, they call it the vomit comet, and there's all this thing about you get sick. No, nope, it was fine, totally fine. I was with 10 other people. Nobody got sick. Everyone had a fabulous time. We would all do it again. I mean, I'm not speaking for the 9 other people, but I would do it again tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and the day after that. All right. So, which brings us to
would you sit yourself in a tube and get shot through from LA to San Francisco at 300-400 miles an hour?
Yeah,
That's what Hyperloop is.
Yeah, I knew that's where you were going. Yeah, I guess I would do that too. So Hyperloop is confusing to me.
Why? Like the need for it, or the technology, or both?
No, I mean, I guess, you know, back in the 50s when offices had those tubes where you could inter-office mail, you could stick your letter in a tube and it would go, it would suck it up into the. That's kind of what I imagine is it's just a tube with back. You said what, maglev with a fan? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So I get the idea of wanting to go faster. I get that, and I get here. Wait, there's a good video. Here. Here's the actual demo of Hyperloop. So this is them building the little demo. You know, he's got 2 parallel transportation businesses. And this is the other big Elon Musk announcement of last week, buried in 3 other announcements from last week, which was that his other underground transportation strategy, which he's building in Las Vegas, is going to be live within 3 months.
Yeah. So I actually also hadn't heard of this boring company.
The boring company. See, and the thing is, with all things Elon, like I remember when he got on stage at TED and spoke about the boring company, and there was this, you could feel in the room, everyone going, is he joking? Is this like, is he being tongue in cheek? Is he like, hey, the boring, because it's boring. We're digging tunnels underground. But he didn't mean boring, that kind of boring. He meant boring like boring holes underground. And that, so let's not confuse, even though it's easy to confuse, Hyperloop with the boring company, because they are in fact parallel strategies, but not the same company and not the same idea. The boring company is essentially an underground ability to take vehicles. Take vehicles, suck them into a hole in the ground, put them under the city streets, and then pop them back up. So it's kind of like, you know, in the airport, you know, those long belts where when it's a really long walk, you can get on the belt and it'll kind of, you can walk, and also it drag you along through the terminal. What are those called? Like walking things, walking belts.
Yeah. Or
right, those things.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what the boring company is building. And this is from inverse.com. It says the boring company was born out of Musk's frustration with Los Angeles traffic at the end of 2016.
Yep.
So this was a concept video in 2017, and now he's building it, and it's going to open in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So I root for all of his companies to succeed, because I can actually see how they solve really big, frustrating problems that can kind of benefit everyone. Like if you take Hyperloop, for example, I mean, Amtrak just does not compare to, say, the European or Japanese railway system, right? The same distance between New York and DC is the same distance between Rome and Florence. It takes Amtrak 4 hours to travel that distance, and it takes, you know, high-speed trains an hour and a half, right? We keep touting ourselves as sort of the greatest country, but our means of public transportation just don't even compete. So I think Elon's sort of transportation alternatives are exciting. They're different, and I would love to see them actually implemented.
So here's the thing. I don't mean to be a skeptic, but it's worth remembering. So there's a great documentary that features Elon, and it's called The Revenge of the Electric Car. First it was Who Killed the Electric Car, which is a fantastic documentary. But The Revenge of the Electric Car is also fascinating. And he plays a role in both of them. And, it's worth thinking about the fact that there are things he can't control. And let's talk about Solar City as an example of that. So Solar City, he bought up all of these solar panel manufacturers and installers with the idea that he was going to be able to roll into your house. I don't exactly understand how the deal got structured, but it was like you would plug into his network, you put solar panels on your roof, he would take the electricity into his network, he would use it to power his electric cars. It was very integrated. And only thing was, he didn't calculate that the price of oil was going to fall out of the sky.
Right.
And the price of oil got so cheap that people said, you know what, solar's great, but we, environment notwithstanding, we're just going to go back to buying oil for a while. And so Solar City got purchased by and rolled into Tesla with a whole bunch of lawsuits and a whole bunch of ugliness. And I guess what I wonder about if I were an investor in these things, which I'm not happily, is, both in terms of the Boring Company and Hyperloop, does COVID not slow or stall or end some meaningful percentage of in-person gatherings?
I think I hope it's all temporary, but I think regardless, you can say that the airline industry has come to sort of a grinding halt, but domestic travel is actually on the rise. I know so many people who have bought cars recently because they're moving out of the city. And so if you think about primary cities like New York and San Francisco, and then sort of smaller secondary cities that are attracting people because they're more affordable, then actually not only does Tesla benefit, but connecting cities like Chicago and Cleveland, or Detroit and Chicago, through either Tesla, Hyperloop, and or the Boring Company, is actually incredible.
So the other thing about Elon that I find interesting is, like, none of it is digital, right? I mean, he's not talking about a virtual world with helmets, and he's almost everything he's doing is quite physical, quite mechanical, quite lots of heavy industry, lots of metal, lots of soldering,
but it's still built in. Like a Tesla, the Tesla dashboard is almost an entire digital screen.
So I've only been in a Tesla once, and I was in the driver's seat, and it was on autopilot, and it was terrifying and magical.
Yeah, it's the digital web interfaces. It's not necessarily up front and center, but everything about his companies is powered by a combination of software and hardware. And I think not only within the companies themselves, but each company together represents a system, like an integrated system, which is wild. Like you said, solar panels, electric car charging stations to help fuel Tesla vehicles, which could then go underground in the Boring Company infrastructure. I mean, he's like a mad scientist when you think about it.
All right, so we got a bunch of live viewers. Let me ask the question to you guys. Like, if you had to vote, like, what's your favorite Elon Musk company, and what's your least favorite? Like, we were going to talk about this as well, so like I can tell you what my favorite is and what my least favorite is. And I don't think we're aligned on this. I think I think So, who wants to go first? All right, let's do favorite.
For me, it's Tesla, and the reasons are I can buy one. It's not like it's attainable.
So for you, it's Tesla. That's interesting. All right, this is going to sound odd given what I just talked about for the last half hour, but I would say my favorite is Neuralink.
Okay.
Not because I would do it necessarily, but because I think space, while it's interesting, isn't really attainable. Tesla, while it's gorgeous and I would love to own one, like it's still a car. Like other people, like it's not a brand new thing. The Boring Company, I travel on the subway, so the idea that we're going to be able to go to Vegas and get from one side of the strip to the other faster seems to me like not a societal win. But I do think Neuralink, if it's deployed in an could be the thing that Google Glass wasn't.
So you think brain to brain, I guess, chip technology is
That's
the net good thing?
Wait a second. You said something different than I was thinking, which is I think of Neuralink as brain to device to computer, but if Neuralink actually allows me to walk down the street and connect with you, like the idea of it as a human to human connecting device never even occurred to me, and I'm not sure that's even in the spec.
Well, that's what Bill's comment said, is that, when you look at the sort of the history of this technology, it sort of implies the potential for brain to brain communication.
All right, so Ann Craig's jumping in. She's saying, my challenge with Elon Musk is when he supports Kanye West for president. I think he's more mad than scientist.
Well, this is why he's so polarizing. I've never really been able to figure him out, because his ideas sound crazy, but then he pulls them off. But then at an individual personal level, sometimes he really does say ridiculous things, or does things like name his kid after a plane.
Yeah, no, he's done crazy shit. He did that whole smoking marijuana on a podcast thing that blew up, and then he tweeted out stock information that got him thrown off his board and penalized by the SEC. I mean, it's not always strategic. That being said, I read a bunch about his politics before we did the show, and he says quite publicly that he's half Republican and half Democrat, and has this whole, at least his position on himself politically is that he's quite moderate and quite middle of the road. So the question is, did he support Kanye because he really believes in Kanye, or because he just was in shit disturber mode?
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, given the number of announcements he had last week, he got virtually no press. I mean,
well, he's getting coverage right now on this podcast.
Indeed he is, and with that, we are running out of time. So your number one is Tesla. What's your lowest?
Probably Solar City, because it was a fan, right?
Oh yeah, that's too easy. And so you want to believe in solar, even if it's not this moment in time. I mean, it's all, at the end of the day, everything he's doing is tied to an electric grid, right? I mean, it's about getting off of fossil fuels.
It's about it's about saving the future of the planet, and if that fails, kind of saving the future of the human race.
I'm going to say, if my favorite is Neuralink, my least favorite is not Hyperloop, but the Boring Company, just because I don't think moving individual boxes with humans around faster, like I like better the idea that New York, I mean, this is going to get me in all kinds of trouble, but like I like better the idea that New York is going to ban all private automobiles and say we're going to have a fleet of electric cars, because in New York you do the same thing. You get in the vehicle and you go 10 blocks, and I would love to have, it's a grid structure. This would be a perfect city for some kind of a public, electric vehicle, driverless car network.
Oh man, we have to do a whole different show just on the future of transportation in cities, because I think you're like stuck on old mental models of like the subway and cars. It's like Betamax. Like, forget Betamax, forget VHS.
Okay, all right. So stuck on old models. Yeah, that's how people definitely describe me. Stuck on old models. Fine. By the way, you're the one who's basically like, everyone's going back to owning their own car and driving around in their Tesla.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. All right. So we have one more comment from Bill. who says, by the way, military has a lot of interest in brain-to-body linkage as a way to drive prosthetic devices worn by injured soldiers. There's a lot of work in this, and I'm sure Neuralink is going to after this market. Yeah, okay.
I like that application. I mean,
yeah, or we could send less people over to have their limbs blown off, which might also be a good application. All right, we are out of time. So with that, we are going to run the animation, say goodbye, and see everybody next week. Bye, Alexa.